Are we done with the premise of the Michigan man and the Michigan man era in Ann Arbor? I think so. I'll explain. Locked On Big Ten starts right now.
You are Locked On Big Ten, your daily podcast on the Big Ten Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Big Ten. I'm Craig Sheeman. Coming up on 40 years as a sports talk show host and play-by-play announcer. And thank you for making us your first listen each and every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. And this episode is brought to you by Nissan. Are you the kind of driver that likes to push things a little further? Ever wonder what adventure could be around the next corner? Take the Nissan Rogue, Nissan Pathfinder, or Nissan Armada and go find your next big adventure. Check them all out today at nissanusa.com. All right, goodbye to the Michigan man. I'll explain what I mean by that. We'll also have an update for you Iowa fans on Cade McNamara's injury and Caitlin Clark, an astonishing offer to play basketball, but not in the WNBA. Plus, we'll have our weekend classics, all of that coming up right here. So, with the departure of Michigan football coach Jim Harbaugh and the firing of basketball coach Juwan Howard and the subsequent promoting of Sherrone Moore and the recent hiring of Dusty May, it seems that Michigan is no longer beholden to the hiring of its own, hiring a Michigan man. That's a big deal in those parts. While a Michigan man was always preferred in positions of authority and coaching in the Wolverines athletic department, they haven't always gotten those spots, and those coaches usually were not afforded much runway to get things up and running if it was off to a slow start. Regardless, every time there is a job opening in Ann Arbor, you always hear the rumblings about, well, we need to hire a Michigan man. Nobody else will understand the culture here, right? Maybe that's true. Maybe it's not. First of all, what is a Michigan man really? Well, calm down because I won't get anybody upset in Michigan. I grew up in Michigan. All right. I grew up in Michigan. I watched Michigan athletics my entire life. So I think I know a little bit about the topic. I know a little bit about the vibe. I know a little bit about the culture. If you were either born in Michigan, played for Michigan, assisted at Michigan, and love Michigan, you're probably considered a Michigan man. That's the long answer. The short answer is Bo. If you played or coached at Michigan at any time under Bo Schembechler, that was a free passport to be considered a Michigan man forever. All right? Jim Harbaugh, no doubt about it, right? Jim Harbaugh fits the bill. He played for Bo. His dad coached under Bo. Jim Harbaugh is a bona fide Michigan man through and through. And that actually bought him some time. Remember, some people were very unhappy with him early on, losing to Ohio State, losing to Michigan State. A lot of people would say, well, look, if we get rid of him, who else are we going to get? Are we going to replace him with somebody who's better? Are we going, you know what? We like having a Michigan man. Jim Harbaugh's a Michigan man. We're going to give him every opportunity to work this thing out. And guess what happened? The patience was rewarded, and Jim Harbaugh cemented himself in the lore of Michigan forever by going undefeated and winning a national championship. Now, there are other reasons for this, too. They were not too keen on bringing in an outsider. They still have memories of Rich Rodriguez over there. That still causes heartburn for Michigan fans. But I would also point out that Brady Hoke was a Michigan man as well, and sometimes that just doesn't work out, does it? So let's look at basketball for a minute. Now, Juwan Howard. Juwan, obviously a Michigan man through and through, and that helped him get this basketball job when John Beilein moved to the NBA. By the way, John Beilein was not a Michigan man, and it worked out just fine for him. A lot of people would have liked him to come back. But being a Michigan man did not help Juwan Howard keep his Michigan job. Howard was a member of the Fab Five, of course. Fab Five has a complicated relationship with the university. Maybe Howard should have received more time, maybe not. But after 6 years, the program had absolutely bottomed out, and a change had to be made there in Ann Arbor with the basketball team. The defining moment of the Michigan culture came from Bo Schembechler himself. It was near the end of his coaching days. He became the athletic director at Michigan, and then he retired as coach and continued as athletic director. Bill Frieder was the men's basketball coach at the time. And on the eve of the 1989 NCAA tournament, word leaked out that Frieder was going to take the Arizona State job after the season. Well, Bo Schembechler was having none of that. Fired him on the spot. He said, no Arizona State man is going to coach Michigan. Only a Michigan man is going to coach Michigan. So assistant coach Steve Fisher was promoted to head coach on the eve of their first game of the NCAA tournament against Xavier. They won all their games and won a national championship. It's just one of the great stories of the history of Michigan. So what about the new coaches at Michigan today? Sherrone Moore. He was not a Michigan man before he came to work for Harbaugh. His closest ties were when he was an assistant at Central Michigan. After Sherrone Moore successfully, though, filled in for Jim Harbaugh during his multiple suspensions. I think at that time, by the way, Harbaugh already knew he was going to go to the NFL, and he started planting some seeds because he wanted Sherrone Moore to get that job. And he anointed Moore in front of everybody in the media as a true Michigan man. That's some street cred right there. He did it publicly to the media, and that statement alone allowed Michigan to adopt Moore as their own and made it very easy for them to just give him the job when Harbaugh left instead of conducting some sort of external search, right? They had their guy. What about new basketball coach Dusty May? Everyone seems pretty excited about him, but he's definitely not a Michigan man, not even close. He's born in Illinois, went to school at Indiana University, and other than a 2-year stint in Ypsilanti as an assistant at Eastern Michigan, he has no real ties to the school or the state of Michigan. So it feels like an end of an era. No more direct ties to Bo on the football side, and a fresh start with a non-Michigan man leading the basketball team. Time to move on and forward. Sure, there's still culture and there's pride and there's history and all that. But the idea of a Michigan man leading a team seems like it's over with. It's gone. We're too far removed. We're too far into the future. I'd like to know how that sits with you Michigan fans out there, you Michigan men and you Michigan women watching. What do you think? Love to hear from you. There are many ways, of course, for you to hook up with this podcast. First of all, if you like what you see, or if you're interested in what you see and hear, tell your friends about us, especially if they're Big Ten alum. And you can subscribe. I'm going to ask you, I always ask every day, please subscribe. Just click on the subscribe button here and you're good. No other information required. It is free, and it's free wherever you get your podcasts. And that way you'll get the latest episode of this podcast as soon as it becomes available each and every day. You can hit us up on Twitter at TalkBig10 our website, TalkBig10 10.com, and of course on YouTube as well. So Caitlin Clark is offered $5 million to play basketball, but not for the WNBA. We'll tell you what that's all about. Would you take it? Plus, we'll update you on Cade McNamara, speaking of Iowa, and the injured quarterback and what's going on there. And did James Franklin have to punish new defensive coordinator Tom Allen at practice? What's that all about? We'll have that here as we continue right here on Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. This week's March Madness bracket highlight is brought to you by our friends at Nissan. Each week, we're picking one team that stands out, a team that's pushed it further than the rest. And just like any of the all-new 2024 Nissan SUVs, these guys were able to take it to the next level. And I'm talking about the Fighting Illini, the number 3 seed in the NCAA tournament. It can only be described as a pathfinder. They've been thrilling to watch. A couple of wins in the NCAA tournament. They're in the Sweet 16, won the Big Ten tournament, and they are ready to roll. So take the Nissan Rogue, the Nissan Pathfinder, or the Nissan Armada, all great vehicles, and go find your next big adventure. It's really easy. All you have to do is go shop at NissanUSA.com. That's NissanUSA.com. Better together. Better Together offers a familiar experience for existing daily fantasy sports players with a social twist. You play together as pairs of teammates against other pairs and groups of people and watch yourself in the standings. And you can have fun competing against maybe some rival friends of yours. A house divided, who knows? If you're tired of the same old daily fantasy grind where you make a roster, cross your fingers, and just hope for the best, Better Together. You can play with your friends, not against them. You can pick more or less with some player stats on a real-time player stat situation, strategize with your partner, and boost your odds. Have somebody to bounce ideas off of. Just don't do it by yourself, and you can climb the leaderboard together. So grab a friend and join. You can send them an invite. You can create a team. You can watch yourself rise in the standings against your other friends just for bragging rights. It's awesome. Download Better Together now from the App Store and sign up using the promo code Locked On for a free $5 entry to any NCAA basketball contest. Remember the code Locked On, of course, because winning alone is fun, but it's always better together. I want to thank everybody for making Locked On Big Ten your first listen each and every day, especially you everydayers out there. Thank you. Meanwhile, be sure to subscribe, and you can do that on YouTube and share and follow and like Locked On Big Ten, your team every day. And don't forget our website, talkbig10.com. You can get fanware, pennants, swag, tickets. You could go back and look back at previous podcasts, maybe ones about your favorite school. They're all organized by school and chronologically. Very easy. Talkbig10.com. The last few days, there have been a lot of interesting Penn State storylines to follow on Locked On Big Ten. I think we've talked about them every day this week with their spring football. In fact, you can go back and watch those on those previous podcasts on Locked On Big Ten on our website, talkbig10.com. Another interesting storyline in Happy Valley, I think, is their new defensive coordinator and former Indiana head coach Tom Allen. Allen takes over for former defensive coordinator Manny Diaz, who led an elite defense last year at Penn State. The Nittany Lions had 3 shutouts and only allowed 247 yards per game last year. That was second best in the country in 2023. Well, Diaz parlayed that into that success into getting a new gig. He's now the head coach over at Duke. So from what I hear, as Allen almost immediately came in, his biggest challenge is not blowing the head coach's whistle, his own whistle, during defensive drills. He's the defensive coordinator, and he's blowing the whistle and getting in there. Only the head coach can blow the whistle, right? That belongs to James Franklin. Tom Allen's been a head coach for a long time. He's having a hard time getting used to it. Franklin actually had to walk up to Allen and take and put his whistle in his pocket. Look, Allen's been a coach for 7 years, a head coach. He's getting used to, playing second fiddle a little bit. He does say that he enjoys focusing just on the defense. It's his big adjustment. He can go in his office after practice, close the door, and just watch film. Not have to deal with all that other stuff that head coaches have to deal with. So anyway, a little fun there. Iowa coach Kirk Ferentz updated us on quarterback Cade McNamara's health as he bounces back from last season's knee injury. He said he's really limited, and he can throw just while standing, but he can't move around, can't drop back and throw. So very limited in spring practice. Again, for Cade McNamara in Iowa, he's been seen wearing a brace on that left knee since the first day of practice. Ferentz says he's had to hold McNamara back a little bit because, kids, young players, they want to go. And coach doesn't want any setbacks because his plan is to have Cade McNamara ready to go. If we don't, need any setbacks in Iowa, and he's expecting McNamara to be a starting QB when the season rolls around. And hopefully he'll be at full strength around June and then hit the ground running, be there for practice in the summer camp. And that would be a luxury for both McNamara and Ferentz because they're not used to that. When McNamara arrived last year after transferring from Michigan, he had an offseason an injury and a little surgery then. Going into spring, he was limited last year. Then, after being at full strength, he suffered a quad injury almost on the first day of practice in the summer. It was that Kids Day open practice. Had a quad injury there and really didn't play much or take many snaps in all of the preseason in the summertime and never really looked right in the few games he did play last year. He only completed 51% of his passes. He threw 4 touchdowns with 3 interceptions, and then he suffered the season-ending knee injury against Michigan State, and that was it for the season. So tough start last year, slow start this year. Keep your fingers crossed, Iowa fans, that he's good to go for summer camp and has a good, full, strong season this year with the Iowa Hawkeyes. Speaking of Iowa basketball star Caitlin Clark, she's been offered $5 million to play in the Big 3 League. According to its founder, of course, rapper Ice Cube started a 3-on-3 league. It's got a TV deal and everything. It's been around for a while. It's pretty legitimate. It's viable. And he's offering Clark $5 million to play. Now, it would be 8 games and possibly 2 playoff games. That's it. 8 to 10 games, $5 million, plus merch, plus sponsorship opportunities. Now, Clark is expected to be the number 1 pick of the WNBA draft, and that belongs to the Indiana Fever. WNBA salaries, by comparison, high 5 figures for rookies. Maybe a couple players clearing $200,000. That's it. The average is low 6 figures. Somebody's offering you $5 million to play 10 games. What would you do? What would you do in that situation? The deal, the Big 3 deal, would allow Clark to play in the WNBA with a small exception. There would be 2 regular season games in the Big 3 that might conflict with the Indiana Fever schedule. Hadn't been dialed in yet, but maybe. There are no female players in the Big 3 League. She would be the first. Even though it's amazing money, my prediction is she will turn the offer down and concentrate solely on her professional career at the WNBA. She'll make that money up, most of it anyway, in endorsements and whatnot, jersey sales. I don't think she does it. Would you? Sweet 16 action tonight. The men back at it. 3 seed Illinois taking on number 2 seed Iowa State. That game, it's late. It's late. Be ready for that, Fighting Illini fans. Get a nap in. 10:09 p.m. Eastern Time. The late one. You can find it on TBS and True TV. The Boilermakers, the number 1 seed, by the way, they play tomorrow, Friday, at 7:39 p.m. on TBS and True TV, taking on number 5 seed Gonzaga. Those 2 played earlier this year in the Maui Classic, and Purdue won that game. Also, Friday, the women are in action. Number 4 seed Indiana taking on number 1 seed South Carolina. That's at 5 o'clock Eastern on ESPN, and South Carolina is undefeated. Caitlin Clark and the number 1 Iowa Hawkeyes play number 5 seed Colorado at 3:30 Eastern Time on ABC on Saturday. Hey, if you're one of those people that watches sports TV in the daytime, you got it on in the background, or maybe you watch it, Fox Sports or ESPN, those talking head TV shows. You ever have to turn down the volume or walk away because they're all screaming and talking over each other? Make the switch to Locked On Sports today, a free 24/7 streaming channel program for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the screaming. Locked On Sports today brings you can't-miss analysis, opinions, and news, streaming 24/7 on YouTube and for free on Amazon Fire TV channels on that app, which, by the way, I'm going to tell you about in a minute. It's all part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. All right, as we look ahead to the weekend coming up here, we're going to take a look at the Big Ten Classics and Big Ten live action of various sports. Baseball season's here as well on the Big Ten Network. We always look ahead to the weekend, so we will do that in just 1 minute right here on Locked On Big Ten. Well, there you go. Fire TV. I told you I was going to tell you about it. It's your destination for sports, from live games to highlights to in-depth analysis. Fire TV offers amazing viewing experiences with smart TVs as well as the Fire TV stick. And you can plug that right into your existing TV. Easy peasy. That provides access to millions of movies and TV episodes as well as free TV and live TV. Whether it's the opening weekend for baseball, and the opening weekend is here. It's this weekend. And in fact, baseball starting today for everybody else other than the Dodgers and the Padres that played out in Seoul last week. Got the college basketball tournament, Sweet 16, all that back on. You're gonna want to have a Fire TV. Fire TV recently created Fire TV channels to deliver a constant supply of the latest videos of your favorite sports brands, all for free. And that includes us here at Locked On. Most of the big pro leagues and college conferences as well. Fire TV channels lets you dive into all the game analysis, highlights, and more, and keeps you up to date on the latest in the world of sports, March Madness, NBA, MLB, you name it. Not to mention news, entertainment, gaming, travel, cooking shows, if that's your thing. Check out Fire TV channels on Fire TV and Alexa devices. And if you haven't checked out Fire TV channels, you should. Trust me on this. Learn more. You can visit Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. That's Amazon.com/LockedOnFireTV. All right, let's get into it. Our final segment here. We always like to look ahead to the weekend to see what's on programming on the Big Ten Network. A lot of stuff that we're all very interested in, and we'll pot it up here. All right, Friday, March 29th. Going to pick up the action here at 1 o'clock Eastern. They have Big Ten Live. It is the Iowa Women's Basketball Sweet 16 press conference. You want to watch Caitlin Clark? You want to watch Coach Lisa Bluder talk? There you go. 1 o'clock Eastern, Big Ten Network. At 2 o'clock, it's a Purdue basketball classic. Purdue versus Gonzaga. This is their game that they played in the Maui Classic, the Maui Invitational, back in November, on November 20th. Purdue won that game by 10, 73-63. Gonzaga was up by 5 at the half, though. Zach Edey, 25 points to lead all scores. We'll see how this game this weekend parallels that one back then. And at 4 o'clock, more Purdue Basketball Classic. We go back to another Purdue-Gonzaga matchup way back in 2000 when they met in the Sweet 16. Yeah, that was Purdue won that one, 75-66, but then they lost to Wisconsin, moving on out of the Elite Eight. The Badgers were able to get them. At 6 o'clock, Big Ten baseball, more Purdue, this time at Ohio State. I haven't looked. What's the temperature this time of year up in Ohio for outdoor baseball? Might be a chilly one. And at 9 o'clock Eastern time, the Big Ten moment. It's the Buckeyes walk-off win against the Wolverines in the football game. Double overtime back in 2016. I'm sure all of you remember that one. Also, we look ahead to Saturday at 12 noon. They're going to air The Journey on the Big Ten Network. It is Big Ten basketball behind the scenes of the Big Ten men's basketball tournament, all from Minneapolis. You can relive all of that in a nice compact program. And then at 3 o'clock, a couple of offerings. They have Big Ten baseball, Minnesota versus Iowa. Yeah, that could be cold too, just like the one at Ohio State. And, Big Ten Network has 2 channels, so some alternate programming. They've got the big moment at 3 o'clock Eastern, the first wave. What's the first wave, Craig? Well, this is cool. I'm going to have to either watch this or tape this. The first wave, this is the first Hawkeye wave from Kinnick Stadium toward the UI Children's Hospital that overlooks the stadium. It's now a tradition going into the fourth quarter. Everybody waves at all the kids. It's one of the greatest moments in sports every Saturday. Here's how it started. All right. Great tradition. Great tradition. And we look ahead to Sunday now. Big Ten baseball, Maryland at Michigan. More cold weather. And at 1 o'clock Eastern time, the big moment. That's Desmond Howard, the events that led to his iconic touchdown and then the Heisman pose in the end zone before winning the Heisman in the game against Ohio State. That was a Heisman moment for sure. Probably don't like it if you're a Buckeye fan, but I get it. Anyway, that's a look at the Big Ten Classics and the Big Ten live broadcast schedule for the weekend, things that we thought you would find very interesting. So I hope you found this interesting as well. Always ask you to subscribe, tell your friends about us, Big Ten alum, anybody you know that would be interested. We would love to have them join us as well. Many ways for you to interact with me. Hit me up. You can hit me up on Twitter X at TalkBig10, number 10. Also the website, TalkBig10, number 10.com. and on YouTube. Really would like to hear from you Michigan fans about the Michigan Man thing that we started off with and what you think moving forward, whether you agree or disagree or think that's just the way it is now moving forward at Michigan, whether you're okay with it or whether you would always kind of prefer to have a Michigan man in charge of your favorite sport. Anyway, hit us up there and then subscribe and follow this podcast right now on your favorite podcast app, and you'll get the latest episode of Locked On Big Ten as soon as it becomes available each and every day. I've told you the audio, if you listen audio only, those usually come out about 4 a.m. Eastern, available all day. The video on YouTube comes out about 6 a.m. Eastern, available forever. And after you watch us, watch another one of Locked On Big Ten. Go back to the website and find some more at talkbig10.com. All of our Locked On Big Ten podcasts are there. And also check out our friends from Locked On Locked On Sports Today. 24/7, covering the top sports stories of the day with the local experts of Locked On. That will do it. I hope you enjoyed it. I sure did, and I can't wait to meet with you tomorrow. We'll kind of get ready for the weekend, of course, with Sweet 16 action, more football news. Can't wait. Thank you for joining us. I'm Craig Sheeman for Locked On Big Ten.